This is Curious Incident, a podcast for special needs families and your window into the world of special education. Special needs parenting can be challenging, and we want to make it easier by providing you with the resources you need to help your child. Let's delve deep into the world of learning differently with your host, special education attorney Adam Dayan.
I am pleased to present Beth Rosenberg as my next guest on the Curious Incident podcast. Beth Rosenberg is an educator and advocate for students with disabilities. Beth is the founder and executive director of Tech Unlimited, a technology not-for-profit program for special needs youth. Tech Unlimited now serves over 350 students from ages 7 to 20 with autism, spectrum, Asperger's, ADHD, OCD, and learning and social emotional challenges. 545 students from ages 10 to 24 with autism, spectrum, Asperger's, ADHD, OCD, and learning and social and emotional challenges. The program empowers these students to develop job-applicable skills in graphic design, video editing, game development, and more. Beth, welcome.
Thank you so much, Adam, for having me.
It's great to have you here. Can you start by telling us about yourself and Tech Unlimited and how it came to be?
Sure. Well, I'm Beth, and I'm an educator. I've been an educator in New York City for about 35 years. I have taught everyone from nursery school, preschool, to graduate students. I still teach, where I'm an adjunct at NYU Tandon School of Engineering. I teach undergraduate and graduate students. And I started Tech Unlimited by accident. It's kind of a funny story, and it goes like this. I am also a very proud mom of two beautiful young people. I am the proud mom of two beautiful young people, and my younger child, my son, is neurodiverse. And by the time he was 2 years old, we had a ton of therapy in the house, including OT, PT, speech, ABA, and a SEAT. I ran a 5-year program in my home with therapists going in and out of my apartment. And then came the special needs schools and also suing the Department of Education twice. And along the way, I was just working with, quote, underserved students at various different places like I-Beam Center for Art and Technology. And prior to that, I had been at the Guggenheim Museum for 10 years early on in my career. So the idea behind underserved students was not really including students with disability. And so when my son was about 9 years old, the iPad came out, and he loved it, and it was so intuitive. And that was the time when STEM, science, technology, engineering, math programs, lots of after-school programs, was really all the rage. And I felt like, why shouldn't my son be learning how to produce technology instead of just playing with technology, like playing games or watching videos? Couldn't he be a creator and a producer instead of just like a watcher? And so I just sort of started a class. In 2009, I was working at the JCC Manhattan as a special needs consultant. And I asked my supervisor if I could have their media room class for a February break in February of 2009. And they said yes. So I wrote up a little ad. I sent it through to my son's school. And in 5 minutes, I got 10 kids to sign up to take a iStop animation video class that week in February, when it's really hard for parents, that February midwinter break. You need to put your kid in some program because you have to work. So I had 10 students, and I knew 2 wonderful graduate students who were doing their PhD at Teachers College, Columbia University. They were doing their PhD in the arts and social justice, and they really didn't know how to work with students on the autism spectrum. But I just knew that they were kind and patient, and that together we would figure it out. So in February of 2009, I brought in these 2 teachers. I had 10 students. I had a media room. We had iStop animation software on the computers. And then one other important thing happened, which was that my daughter, who's a few years older, was in high school. And high school students in New York need community service. And so I thought, it's really good to have a lot of people teaching our special needs students. So could I bring in some of my daughter's friends to sort of get community service, and they would work with the students that week as well. So then I would have 2 teachers in the classroom plus myself. So that's 3 teachers in the classroom plus about 3 community service students. So now I had about 6 adults in the classroom with 10 students, and it was beautiful. And at the end of the week, the students, they worked really hard, and they made fantastic videos all about what they were interested in. Like my son loves trains, he made video about trains. Another student loved the Titanic, and she made a video about, an iStop animation video about the Titanic. And that was the very first workshop. And then the parents were hooked. They then said, well, what about April break? And what about summer break? And we started doing the program little bits here and there until around 2013, my supervisor at NYU, Professor Luc Dubois at NYU Tandon.
So I just want to commend you on a few things before we move forward. First of all, on the parent side, all that you were managing and coordinating in terms of your son's services. Secondly, just in terms of the way you're raising the bar for special education students, neurodiverse individuals, and what they're capable of, not just accepting the status quo, but leveling it up. And the way you're finding ways, and the way that you're combining typically developing and neurodiverse children to support each other. I think that's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Adam. Really, this idea was just an idea. I had no idea if it was really going to work. And I guess I'm kind of one of those warrior moms where I just see that I want my kid to get the best, and also I want other students too to be able to have technology skills in their back pocket. I mean, after all, we live in the 21st century, and everyone needs to use technology. If you're checking out groceries at the supermarket, you're using a computer to do that. If you're, signing up to get a ticket to a show, you're using a computer. So to me, technology is the communication language of the 21st century. And it really is the language that our young people want and crave. And I saw that with my own son. And so after we did that first workshop, I was very excited by it, and we just kind of did them here and there. We did like a week in the summer at the JCC. Then we went back to, February, and we went back and forth from 2009 to 2013 doing those workshops. I had no website. I had no insurance. I had no staff or anything. And along the way, I was a special needs consultant at that point for many different museums in New York City, because my background is I have a BA in art history and spent many years at the Guggenheim Museum in the education department. And I've always taught on the college level. I taught at School of Visual Arts. I taught at CUNY York College, and now at NYU. And to me, the idea behind giving these students technology skills was just easy. It was just a given. It was like, why isn't anyone doing this? So in 2013, my boss, Professor Luc Dubois, saw me in the hallway at NYU, and he said to me, hey, you're running this program for students with disabilities, right? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, well, we're starting a new space at NYU Tandon called the Ability Project. And it's going to be a classroom, and we're going to do assistive technology and accessibility. And it's a combo between three different schools: the Steinhardt School of Teaching and Learning, Tisch School of the Arts, the ITP program, and NYU Tandon, the program that I teach in called Integrated Digital Media and Design. And would you like to bring your program here to NYU? And I said, okay. And he said, well, what are you? Like, are you a nonprofit? Like, are you a business? I said, I'm nothing. I have no website. I have nothing. And he said, well, you're going to have to become something, because if we're going to do a partnership, we need to, have a real partnership. And I said, well, I come from the nonprofit world, so I will become a nonprofit if you become a board member. And that was in 2013, and we shook on it. And the rest is history, because what happened was in the summer of 2013, that is when I brought the program to NYU Tandon, and that is when everything changed.
So that was 12 years ago, and you were doing it for several years before that relationship came to fruition. So you've been at it for quite some time, and I want to ask you, what makes Tech Unlimited different from other programs serving young people with special needs?
I'm really proud to say that we have a unique pedagogy where we combine a whole bunch of different learning teaching methodologies that are out there, including universal design for learning, explicit instruction, connected learning, design thinking, all of these different things which may sound like buzzwords, but they're actually real things in the field of education. And we combine them, but also the secret sauce for us is that we have multiple adults in the classroom, including a social worker in every single class. And so while the students are learning technology skills, we're also working with them on their soft skills, their conversation around the water cooler, their workplace etiquette, because that is really key for these students. And I do want to say one other thing. I want to say that when I started thinking about this program and teaching my son and his friends technology skills, some of it was about, yes, students need to become producers and not consumers, but a lot of it was about fear. A lot of it was about, I am scared as a parent that my son, like so many others today, will wind up on the couch and will not have a meaningful, purposeful life doing what they want to do. And so fear really drove me. It drives me a lot.
And are the ratios in these workshops similar to what they were in the beginning, around 10 students and 2 or 3 adults?
Yes. So now we don't do community service anymore for high school students because we work with high school students, so that wouldn't really work. Everyone gets paid at Tech Unlimited. This is not a volunteer organization. Education is a serious job. So we have always have a lead tech teacher in the classroom, an assistant tech teacher in the classroom, a social worker in the classroom, and then for every 4 students, there's another assistant, which we call a counselor. And classes are really not more than 16 to 20 students. If it's more than that, then we open up another separate classroom, and then we staff it in the same staffing model. I use this phrase around one-to-one type of learning. I like to say, if it's good enough for the Queen of England and her children, it should be good enough for our kids. And really, everyone has their own individual learning styles. And, neurodiverse students particularly need different things, right? One student, you meet one student, you know one student, they're different, and they need a lot of individual attention. Some students just need a smile, like, you can do that. I'm here for you if you need me, but I know that you can do that. And other students really need a cheat sheet of saying, like, this is the keys that you press, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that. So every student is completely different.
What do you look for before admitting a student?
So we have two initiatives. One initiative is called Tech Knowledge Workshops, and the other initiative is called Career Ladder Programs. We go from ages 10 to 24. So between 10 and 14, we want students to take Tech Knowledge Workshops. They're open to anyone. They're not application-based in any way. Like, for example, we just had a Sunday program. It was a family day, and it was all on emerging AI. Right? And so families and their kids got to go around in in different stations and play with lots of different AI software. And that was super fun. And then we even had a guest speaker from one of our corporate sponsors, Infosys Foundation USA. So then we had a guest speaker. So it was a super fun day. We even had ice cream for everyone. We like to make it fun and learn it, like both. And so anyone can take that, right? And then our summer workshops, same thing. We did 5 weeks of summer workshops. Every week is a different, a different program. Like 1 week is, gaming. The next week is video editing. The next week is podcasts. We did do podcasts. So anyone can take those, and we encourage them, and we encourage parents to sign up to their kids. They just go to our website, and some of the workshops have small price tags attached to them, but we give out a lot of financial scholarships. You just have to fill out the form online, and we don't ask for your tax records. I don't care about your tax records. We just say, like, are you suing a school? Like, are you paying, a private school fee? We want to know that, because I know how much it costs to raise a special needs child. And I want to make sure that our workshops are open to everyone. Now, the other part of our programs is something called Career Ladder. And some of those programs have applications. So the idea is, like, go into the Tech Knowledge programs, go to the summer workshops, go to the after-school program. We have a beautiful free after-school program once a month called Digital Empowerment, where we just taught kids all about financial scams, right? How many scams are you getting every single day? It's unbelievable.
Constant.
Right. So you can take any of our, Tech Knowledge programs, which gives you like a nice background of lots of different software and skills, et cetera. And then when you're 15, then you're going to move into what we call the Career Ladder. And the Career Ladder is a suite of 5 work-based learning programs. And for some of those programs, we ask you to fill out a very simple application. And the thing that we want to know is like 2 things. One, we want to know if you really want to learn or you just want to play YouTube. Because if you just want to sit behind the computer and play YouTube or play video games or talk on your phone, then the program is not for you. We want to know that you want to learn. And then for some of the programs, we want you to have a couple of programs under your belt. Like, we want you to maybe know Photoshop or Canva. We want you to know how to get around Google Docs, or to, do you know PowerPoint? Like, sort of not super hard things. And also, we're not a coding program. We are not teaching coding, with the exception of one type of software called processing. One type of software called processing is a little bit of code, but the code comes out visual. So it's like a beautiful visual abstract design that the kids love to do. But we're not coding. Also, between you and me, we don't need to code anymore because of AI. That's another story.
And I want to come back to that a little bit later, your take on AI. But first, you offer a digital media arts program and career readiness internships. Can you explain how those work?
Okay. So once the student is in our career ladder program, and remember I said there's like 5 different programs, and I'm going to describe those programs to you. Okay. So one of the programs that is part of Career Ladder is called the Creative Tech Internship Program. And that is an in-person or online program that meets for the full day on Fridays. The reason that program came about is because many schools want their kids, by the time they're juniors or seniors, to be out of school. They want you to get that work experience. And many schools sort of make the parent try to find that internship type experience. Well, when my son was in high school, the first place that he was, he had an internship program was in HR at a law firm, which was very nice that a parent had gotten that, for a couple of kids. And when he came home that day, he said, do you want me to tell you what I did, Mom? And I said, yeah, tell me what you did. And he said, I sorted paper clips. And my daughter sat around at the dinner table with us, and she said, well, there are 2 kinds of boxes of paper clips that you can buy, the big ones or you can buy the small ones. And he said, I know, but that's what they made me do. Mm-hmm. I was so upset. I called the other parent who was working along with my son. Her kid was working with my son because they sent them 2 at a time to different internship sites. And I said, do you understand what they're doing? And she said, oh, Beth, it's all right. It's experience. It's okay. And in the back of my mind, I was like, no, this is not okay. This is an absolute waste of time. This is demeaning. It's condescending. And it really follows that old model of disability. It's a 100-year-old model called, of the 4 Fs, which is food, filth, factories, flowers. And that is the 100-year-old model of disability employment in the United States. Food, janitor jobs, cleaning people's plates, washing dishes. Filth, again, janitor, cleaning. Flowers, doing something super menial, like taking the thorns off of roses. And factories. We know about factories. And so at that point, the next year, I called up the school and I said, look, I'm running this program, this nonprofit, Tech Unlimited. We're going to start a new program. We're going to call it the Creative Tech Internship. Send me some kids and we will have a great time with them and they'll do various different things. Well, that program started with 2 students in 2017. And we just started our class last Friday, and we have 35 students.
Wow.
And it's a great program because the students spend the whole day with us with the social worker, and they have a lot of fun, and they do things. First of all, they're in a college campus. They're at NYU, so they walk in, they feel proud. They're like an NYU student for the day. The security guards know them. The staff knows them. Other faculty at NYU, gets to know them. And every month they focus on a different, aspect. So they may learn digital marketing one month, and the next month they're learning, game design. And then we take their games and we put it into the annual competition Games for Change. And some of them win. Or they make films. Like last year, they made films for the Pace Disability Film Festival about what neurodiversity means to them.
Cool.
So that's one of our programs. And the next program that is very popular is called the Digital Agency. That's an after-school online program where we pay the students to create real digital projects for people, for clients. So, for example, they are in the middle of working on a website around called Disability Doulas, because it turns out that if you have a disability and you give birth, at least in New York State, the staff at hospitals want to talk the mother out of keeping their baby if you have a disability, if you have a known disability.
What?
I know. So there are doulas. Doulas are pretty strong. So Brooklyn Law School, their disability clinic, is trying to help train doulas to know their rights so that the doulas can help the mothers. So we're making a website for Brooklyn Law School called Disability Doulas, which is kind of amazing, right? The client comes in, they say to the students, this is what we need. These are the colors. We need a logo. We want it to be 5 pages. Here are the pictures. Here's the content. And then our students make it. And each of them earns, for a 12-week session, they earn $120, provided that they come and that they work. But they get a check for $120.
And in that example, they're not just working on digital marketing skills, they're also part of a cause that's furthering disability awareness.
Yes, we feel that all the students need to understand what self-advocacy means, because research shows that if the parent advocates for the student will be better. If the parent advocates for the student trajectory will be greater. If the student self-advocates, their own trajectory will be greater. So we want the student to leave with the idea that they are neurodiverse, they have strengths, they have things to work on, and that there is a whole world around disability, and that it's a social justice issue.
What's the difference between the two trajectories you just said?
Between the tech knowledge workshops and the career ladder workshops.
No, where the parent is advocating versus where the child is self-advocating.
So I think that it's really hard to raise a special needs student, and I think parents are exhausted. And I think that as a parent, it's not natural to be still maybe living with your 20-something, 30-something, to be still thinking about, like, what are they having for dinner? How are they going to get here or there? And so I feel like parents are exhausted. But what I do see in my time at Tech Unlimited is that the parents who are more active in the student's life, they just do better. The student just does better. Maybe it's about the parent modeling for the student to say to the student, the school said no, that you can't come to the creative tech internship class, but I'm not giving up. I'm calling the principal every single day until you're going to get into that class. And I had a parent who did that. I had a school who didn't want their students to come to our Friday program, and a longtime student, amazing parent who's on our parent advisory council. And she said, I'm just going to bother them until they basically tell me that he can come to the program. And I said, I agree with you. I said, in fact, just send him to the program. What are they going to do? Kick you out? They already have your money. It's a private school. And she was like, you're right. But anyway, the student wound up joining the program last year, a couple months late, because the school was giving us a hard time. So the parent advocated for the kid, and then the kid sees the parent advocate, and the student needs to advocate. They need to be able to say what they mean and mean what they say. One of my favorite stories about my own son, where I finally realized that he could be a self-advocate, was one day he went for lunch when he was a student, and he went to one of those places where you get a sandwich, and he told me that he got the wrong sandwich. Like, they gave him a vegetable sandwich instead of a meatball sandwich. And he said to me, so Mom, you're going to be really proud of me because I opened up my sandwich, I saw that it was a vegetable sandwich, and I'm like, I'm not eating this, so what would Mom do? Walk right back into the store and say, you gave me the wrong sandwich, I want a meatball sandwich. And I was like, yes, you get it.
Nice. That's a big win. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, I think is the expression, and if they have modeling from their parents, they can act out the advocacy on their own. I think I interrupted you before. You were going through the different programs. We've got Creative Tech. We've got the Digital Agency. I think you were going to mention some others.
Right. So we have this other program called Level Up. And the Level Up program is a career pathway program, because what we have found over the past few years is that it's not enough for your student, your kid, your child to get a smattering of softwares, of technology skills, like to get a smattering, like to know a little bit about podcast editing, to know a little bit of Premiere, to know a little bit of Canva, to know a little bit of Photoshop. What is really important is to delve deep into whatever that career pathway is. So we decided to start off with a class called Digital Marketing and E-commerce. And why did we start that last year? Well, we were lucky enough to receive a grant from the New York City Employment Training Coalition, plus Google.org. And we hooked up with the disability organization AHRC and also Bridges to Work. And the idea was, could we take a Grow with Google curriculum, because Google has curriculum out there that they want people to use, and then you get a certification and you can put it on your LinkedIn, et cetera. So could we take that digital marketing curriculum, adapt it, redo it for special needs students using our pedagogy, and then give it out to students? And that's what we did. And so we were then able to not only teach students about the idea of Canva or Photoshop or video editing, but we were then able to talk to them about branding and marketing and Google Analytics, et cetera. And so that idea really made us think, let's be a little bit more focused, a little bit more pointed. And so our next class that we did, we piloted a class in this past June called Careers for Education, because we are finding that a lot of our students are working in special needs schools. They're working in camps. They're working in youth centers. And so we did a 4-session class about what does it mean and what are helpful tips and tricks to work in a school, using Google Docs, thinking about project management, all of those types of things. This fall, we're offering 2 classes, one in digital entrepreneurship, which I'm really excited about. It's a 6-week class online, and the other one is going to be a longer class in data analytics. And so, and when I say data analytics, it sounds really hard and whatever, but all it is Excel. It's like teaching Excel, because that is the heart of data analytics, for an entry-level job. So these are all things that we're thinking about, these sort of career pathways related to entry-level jobs. How do you get your foot in the door? Because if you don't know that if you can't say that you know a little bit about Google Analytics, if you're applying for a social media job, then you're not going to get the job.
Pretty sophisticated stuff in terms of the application.
Well, the meaning the application for the students that they have to.
I mean, the application of the tool, right?
Oh, you're right. The application of the tool.
It may be based on an Excel spreadsheet,
exactly.
But the data that's going into it and the analysis of it and what it can be used for, it's pretty sophisticated.
Right. And I mean, I do want to say something about the type of student that really thrives at Tech Unlimited, and this is my own made-up word. I based Tech Unlimited on what I know, based on my own experience as a parent. And I would say that there is a new type of student, in a way, that I am calling a mid-level neurodiverse student. I don't know what to call the student. This is a student who has language, maybe not a lot of language, but they have some expressive language, and they have average IQ. Not off the charts, but average IQ. And they are able to sit and to listen, right? And they may have learning disabilities. They may not be great readers. They may have dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. They probably have ADHD. They probably have sensory challenges, the lights in this room, the humming, and of course the executive functioning. So the combination of all of that between, the ADHD, various different characteristics. Maybe there's some mental health things like OCD. That is our student.
I'm just hearing a lot of likes in your notes, so I wanted to flag
thank
it for
you.
you and see if we can reduce them.
Okay, we're going to reduce them.
Okay.
Should I go back and do who our student is?
No, I don't think that's necessary. That's a really helpful profile. Tell our listeners, what role do soft skills like time management, collaboration, and humility play in preparing young people for employment?
I have to say, Adam, this is the most important thing. And I like to tell parents, I don't care how smart your kid is. I don't care if they get A's or you have tons of tutors for them. I don't care. The dumbest person that you went to high school with owns a DJ company that plays every single wedding and bar mitzvahs. It's true. It's literally from my high school and, is a zillionaire. The soft skills are massively important. And I wish that parents could see that. I wish that we could, as parents, really put the academics aside. No one says, what was your grade point average in high school or even college? No one cares. They don't care. But when you're sitting down at an interview, if you can't have a chit chat, if you can't say to someone, that's a very nice suit that you're wearing, only because you want to dig in and have a conversation with them, then that becomes really difficult for these students in terms of jobs. So what we are seeing is that teaching students tech skills using our supportive and inclusive methodology is easy. The piece that is hard is the soft skills. And things like saying good morning, walking in on a Friday and saying good morning. Or if you see that someone's in a meeting, don't run up to them and say, oh, Beth, I have to ask you this question. You have to say, Beth, I see you're in the meeting, or I'm going to wait until you're finished with your meeting. But don't run and cut into the meeting. These different types of skills around the water cooler, that hidden curriculum, skills around the water cooler, whatever they are. But see, the thing is that we as parents can really practice these skills. Things like bringing your dishes to the sink when you finish, eating, or when you when you leave your house to say, bye everyone, have a nice day. Little things like that. I feel like it's really hard to be a parent. And my favorite line is from that Steve Martin movie, Parenthood, the old one, which says something like, someone says something like, you need a license to drive, but you don't need a license to parent. Mm-hmm. And look, I am not the greatest parent at all. I am far from it. And it's very hard to parent your own kids. I always say that to my own staff. I say, I understand that parent. I understand them because I did that as well. I did that. But I feel like I wish that parents could give their children more independence from the time they're 15 and require things of them as well, like require them to put the cookies and chips in their lunchbox. The parent doesn't have to do it. To share that experience. Again, parenting is the hardest job in the world. But for these students, for our mid-level neurodiverse students, who I believe really can push ahead and contribute to the world in a meaningful way, we have to help them.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about Steve Martin. What would that even look like, getting a parenting license, and who monitors that to make sure you're in compliance, and then what would need to happen for that license to be revoked? And I would love to see Steve Martin continue this bit.
Right. And the thing is, I think what's really interesting too is I'm kind of obsessed with that Netflix show Adolescence that came out that won 8 Emmy Awards. I keep talking about it and reading about it, and it's really about how it's about a lot of things, but in terms of technology, it's about how we just allow our kids to be on social media and to not give them any rules, not give them any rules at all. Or even the New York Times article that just came out on Sunday about the parent who's suing Roblox because their kid was talking to what we now know was a known pedophile in Florida, and the kid committed suicide. We as parents, we have to teach our kids these things. It's like if you're teaching a kid to cross the street, you got to teach your kid, guess what? You can't be sitting, at your desk and be gaming for 2 hours. That's it. I'm setting the clock. You got 45 minutes, and that's it. And when I say it's off, it's off. You got to do that before they're 18. Because if you don't do it before they're 18, then you're in a whole nother category.
You and Jonathan hate. I always confuse.
Hill? Jonathan Hill? No.
Jonathan Haidt, who is also an NYU professor and wrote the book Anxious Generation.
Yes.
At the forefront
right.
of these issues, talking about the role that technology is having on young people and the boundaries that we need to set as parents when they should have access to smartphones or social media, and everything that you're saying in terms of the rules that parents need to teach their children when they're young, so that when they become adults, it's ingrained in them how they should be with technology. I think this is super important.
It's incredibly important, and it's really about digital empowerment and digital literacy, and I think that everyone is passing the buck, right? Like, AI companies are passing the buck, saying, someone else will do it. Schools pass the buck. Parents pass the buck to the schools. No one is holding this, sacred and saying, in my house, with my children, we're going to have a conversation about how long you're allowed to scroll through Instagram today. That's what we're going to do. And then we're going to have a conversation about, what are you seeing on Instagram? Like, what is of interest to you? Like, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see your Instagram. We're not having that conversation. We're almost like we're afraid of our kids. We're afraid of them. I like to say, let your kids be a teeny little bit afraid of you in the most nicest way. But like, you are the parent, right? I mean, I just know a lot of parents who we all feel, in a way, we feel bad for our kids. And so and I am the same way. You get the $500 headphones if you can afford them. You get the nice sneakers, et cetera, et cetera. But what are we doing there? They don't understand the value of money at all. They don't even understand what $500 is different than $50. They do not get it. And so what we're trying to do at Tech Unlimited is to show students that they don't have to be always consuming stuff. Let them be makers. It's fun to be a maker. It's fun to make things. Just like Lego, right? You're making stuff. We do some of that. We do some physical computing with cardboard, with batteries, with wires. The kids love it. They come up with their own, robots, et cetera. We want to teach students ultimately to problem solve. That's what I think technology is really about. It's about problem solving. Like, the robots haven't taken over just yet. Like when a student says, this is not working, whatever. What we want to say to them is, think about what's not working. Can you problem solve for this? if you can't problem solve on your own, can you go to YouTube and look up a YouTube video which will teach you how to do it? Can you Google it? And then that is power in and of itself. For a student to realize, wait, the computer doesn't control me. I control the computer.
All right. So speaking of robots, give me your take on AI specifically as it pertains to special education students.
There are positives and negatives with AI, but for special ed students, I do see a lot of wonderful things in regard to AI. If you're a student who is dyslexic and you can draft out your paper with AI, that doesn't mean that you are handing in an AI paper, but you are getting an outline from AI. I say, great. What's wrong with that? Versus sitting there and struggling and feeling bad about yourself that you can't understand the words on the page. So, and that is a great, I think, example of AI. There are, lots of different researchers that are doing various different things about using AI to model soft skills and language, as well, especially if you are a non-speaking individual. So I think that AI can really be a game changer for our students if it's used well. Now, where I see AI problematic is that when the student relies on AI so much that they are losing their own ability to think. And I do see that actually in my own undergraduate and graduate classes, and that scares me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, talk about transferable skills and how they translate into real employment opportunities.
I think transferable skills are like the most important thing. And when I say transferable skills, what I mean is that if you have a student who loves Thomas the Tank Engine or the Titanic, as I said before, and they are researching and going deep into, the various different episodes and when did certain trains appear and, et cetera, I think that is a transferable skill. To understand how to research something is great. We all need to be researchers all the time. I think that is a great transferable skill. A transferable skill is something like, for example, if you have your child help you go food shopping, right? And you give them a list, in the front of the store, and you say, okay, now you need to find me those 5 items. And they have to walk around, figure out, okay, the cookies are going to be with the crackers. Okay, that makes sense. Maybe the gluten-free ones are there, or maybe there's a separate gluten-free aisle. I'm going to check. Or if I don't know, I'm going to see that man over there who's unpacking groceries. I'm going to go and ask him, where's the applesauce? That is a transferable skill. So those types of things, we need to have our students do more and more of that, because those are skills that you need in the workplace. You need research in the workplace. You need to be able to find things in the workplace. You need to be able to ask someone for something in the workplace, right? Like, you need to be able to go into Domino's Pizza and don't order for your kid. Say to your kid, I'm having the pepperoni pizza, and what are you having, Susan? You tell them, Mom. You tell them. No, you can tell them what you're having. Oh, okay, I'm going to have the white cheese pizza. And that is a transferable skill. We need to do more of that. And parents, I feel like, need to realize that and cut it with the academics. Cut it. Again, the SAT, the ACT, the this, that, the other thing. School is great. I'm an educator. I believe in school. But you know what I think school really teaches you? School teaches you how to get along with other people, how to make a friend, how to problem solve, how to collaborate, and hopefully the most important thing, a little bit of criticality. How to look around and be like, ooh, that may not be right. I don't agree with that author. maybe I should agree with this person instead. That's what school, in my humble opinion, teaches.
Okay, really interesting. My brain is firing in terms of things to do with my own children. I think these are good tips for any parent, whether they have neurodiverse children or not. My kids love going to the nut factory. They love doing math. I'm thinking about next time we go, let's make it a math exercise. But I agree with you, and it brings me back to a book called Sabertooth Curriculum. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I forget the author, but it's all about how the curriculum in schools is so outdated. It was created when there were certain needs in society. The needs have changed, but the curriculum hasn't updated, and that's where we are. So important to focus on things that are practical for the real world and employment situations. Beth, you started the ASD Workforce Coalition, Autism Spectrum Disorder Workforce Coalition, about a year and a half ago, I think.
Late 2023.
Okay. What is it and what motivated you to create it?
So there's many wonderful disability organizations in New York, and I just feel like we all need to talk to each other more. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time someone is doing a program for special needs students. So I decided that we would meet every 6 weeks for 1 hour, and I would invite tons of nonprofit organizations. And so we have the Mayor's Office for Disability on it. We have the Intrepid Museum, which does wonderful programs for people with disabilities. We have Job Path. We have HRC. We have tons of organizations, nonprofits, who are all trying to wrap their head around students with disabilities. Very much around internships, because internships, as we know, can lead to jobs. And that is what we all want. We want to see these students who we feel, are capable, employed in society, and not just to continue to rely on either the 4F disability model or the other model, which is like Microsoft and Ernst Young, et cetera, saying, oh, we have an autism program, but they're only hiring the PhD, low support, high functioning individuals, formerly known as Asperger's, which we don't say anymore, right? So those seem to be the two models. Isn't there anything in between? And that was what I wanted. I wanted to see, could there be something in between? Could we think of internships and programs and even collaborate together? And so we get on the phone every 6 weeks, and it's a bunch of, passionate people who are educators, parents who've started autism entrepreneurship organizations like Invictus Bakery in Brooklyn. And we get on the phone and we think about the system, and we think about how can we change the system.
I applaud that. I see special education schools, private ones, doing this type of work. I see private companies or nonprofits doing this type of work. I think of a Rose Farm in Connecticut that employs individuals with special needs. I don't see enough of this happening on a national or societal level, and I think what you're doing with this coalition is so important.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very fun, and it's also like you just get to hang around and speak to your people, right? Your people. Like, you're my person. Hopefully I'm your person, right?
Of course.
And we have the same common language, and we have the same issues that we care about. And we want to make the world a better place. That is sort of what drives me in a way, Adam. It's like, I want to leave this world. We're all here for a finite amount of time. I really want to leave this world a better place than I found it for people like my own son. And but not just me, so many other parents, educators, etc. We gotta leave this world a better place for these students, because there's more and more of these students. We don't know why. Better diagnosis, the water, who cares, right? But this is our society. This is our community. There should be a place for everyone in our community, and we need to stop thinking that these incredible students who are creative, who are interesting, smart, funny, that there's no place for them, because there is.
Agreed, 100%. Beth, two-part question. What do parents most misunderstand about the transition from school to work for their neurodiverse children? And how do you help parents understand the difference between advocating for their child and unintentionally enabling them? We touched on that second part a little while ago.
I'm going to do the advocating, enabling first. So I think as parents, we're all guilty of something called learned helplessness. We help our kids a little too much. Am I guilty of it? Yes. Why did I wake up at 6:30 in the morning and make my son breakfast and lunch? He absolutely can do it. And then I get nervous. Well, if he doesn't wake up on time and he doesn't make it, and he goes to work late, are they going to get upset? Will they fire him? How's that going to look? Whatever. So I figure, I'm just going to do it myself. And part of me enjoys doing it. Who doesn't like making your child a healthy breakfast? That's learned helplessness. I'm not doing anything good for my kid when I do that. And I shouldn't be doing it, but I do. So I am enabling him, right? And so that's not good. Like we should expect, and we should have our children, do those types of things, because the more that we do for them, the less independence that they are taking for themselves. And at the end of the day, we need and want our kids to be independent, right?
Yes, of course.
So the idea behind, I would say enabling is learned helplessness, if that sounds okay. And then the advocating is, as a parent, advocating and saying, this is unacceptable, calling up the school and saying, I had a private tutor, come and my son is at, this grade, this reading level, and he really should be at this reading level on his grade, and he's 3 years behind school. What are you going to do about it? And the school's saying, oh, we don't have enough teachers. Sorry, right? Sorry. And that's where the parent should say, well, I'm now going to, sue you, or, I'm bringing in my own teacher, and you're going to have to give them a space for them to work in daily, or something like that. So, there's the advocating. The piece around graduating from high school and transition and next steps, I think is also a very difficult part for parents. For some reason, parents have it in their head, and I feel like I'm going down on parents, but I really am not, that their special needs student should graduate high school at age 18. And I think that is the worst thing possible. Do not have your developmentally disabled, neurodiverse student graduate at 18. Because if the student is 18, guess what? They're developmentally delayed. They're really 15. If you have an IEP, which all of these special needs students do, take the full IEP to 21. Take it. Take the full IEP. And if the school says, well, it's senior year, I don't know, that there's no other place, well, the answer to that is the student can be a super senior. Don't send his information to the New York State Education Department to put him on the track for graduation. Say you're going to spend another year here and you don't have a specific program, which you should. Well, then you're going to make one. And as a parent advocate, I'm going to help you make one as well. He's going to be an intern, at XYZ 2 days a week. The other 3 days, he's going to come in. let him sit in on the math class, the English class, etc. And then for a half a day a week, how about he just follows around and shadows a teacher? Or you give him some, work to do, some Xeroxing work or whatever in the school. So now the kid's 19 or 20, and now they've matured a little bit more. There are transition programs out there. They're few and far between. They're not great. And in order to get them paid for by the DOE, you have to sue. And you have to sue before that, October of their senior year, because then their paperwork will go to the New York State Education Department, and you don't want that happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to avoid the issuance of a diploma, and if you're looking to extend beyond that senior year, make moves so that it can be avoided. Right.
And so I think that IEP until you're 21 is super important. Also, I think that it's very important to understand the kind of diploma that your student is getting. So Regents diploma honestly means nothing, only if you're going to a SUNY school in New York State. Otherwise, if you apply to any other school, Landmark, Beacon, any of the special needs schools, they have no idea what a Regents diploma is. So that is a total farce that the New York State Department of Education plays on parents. Just a regular diploma, that's all you really want. But then you have these schools that are not giving students their, a diploma. And so you really have to think around a lot around that. If your student is possibly capable of getting more than a certificate of attendance, think really hard about that. I had a parent a couple of years ago whose student was getting a certificate of attendance. She didn't even know. She didn't understand the kind of diploma until I told her. And then she went ahead and she sued. And she got him into a transitions program, which then was able to give him a New York State, private school diploma, which is great. So to really think about those years, starting when you're 17, can you extend school? And also, do you need the help of an attorney to help you, which very often you do? And also the other thing that I think is really important in that transition period too is really getting some good testing for your child. I can't, say enough about testing. Testing is very, very important. And I realize that parents say, oh, it's too expensive, et cetera. But I have to say, you use a credit card to buy your kids, a beautiful pair of sneakers. You can do the same. And there are ways to put a neuropsych bill through your insurance. You just have to know how. The secret to that is, very simply, you have to make the doctor's office line item every single test that they give the student. So you can't get a bill for $8,500 that just says $8,500 neuropsych testing. Every single test has to be line itemed, and then you can possibly submit it to your medical insurance.
And there are ways to get it funded through the Department of Education
exactly.
if it's not possible to get it funded
exactly.
through insurance. We've all heard the expression "little kids, little problems; big kids, big problems." I've heard you use that expression yourself. How should families prepare for those bigger challenges down the road?
Okay.
Okay, we have the question. Go ahead.
As students with special needs get older, and the type of student that we work with at Tech Unlimited, back to this idea of the mid-level neurodiverse student, these students know that they are different than their sibling, than the person down the block, than the kid that they see at the park or the movies or synagogue or whatever. They know it. And the big piece, one of my colleagues once told me, she said anxiety is the biggest killer. It's the biggest killer for these kids because anxiety has multiple forms. It comes, you get the depression, and then you get the OCD, and
raising my hand over here.
We all have it a little bit, right? But it can become debilitating, right? When
Oh, yeah.
anxiety becomes debilitating, when OCD or something like it becomes debilitating, then that's when the really hard stuff happens. And so, I don't have the magic answer. I just know that our role as parents is never complete. But the more that you can get into your kid's life, the better. Like, watch South Park with them. It's funny, right? Ask them for their recommendations of what they're watching on Netflix. If they're telling you they're watching Abbott Elementary, go ahead and watch it. Or watch Ted Lasso with them. Discuss it afterwards and say, wow, there was a lesson in here. Did you understand what was happening? I think that the more you could sort of like spend time, the old-fashioned thing of spending time with your kid and really talking with them, and just seeing what their likes and dislikes are, that leads to hopefully, a stronger relationship, so that when they are depressed and they are feeling, under the table, that they will understand that I can go to my parent.
I agree with you. I think that was very well said. It can be hard at times. I think about my kids and TV. Sometimes they're watching something that maybe, if it's about dating in high school and they're not anywhere near that age yet, can seem a little bit inappropriate. Maybe the impulse is to just shut it off or change the channel. But there's an opportunity there, as long as it's not, wildly inappropriate, to watch it with them, see what's happening in the scenes, discuss it with them, see how understand how it's making them feel, or if they think it's, make it a teachable moment. And I think that takes some courage to lean in and grapple with it. It might be easier to change the channel, shut it off, or say no, but to foster that relationship where you can talk about anything and they're comfortable opening up to you. I mean, that's invaluable. If you can nurture that type of relationship with your child,
right,
where you can talk about even the most difficult subjects and really tap into how are they experiencing this thing, that's priceless.
I want to tell you about this project that we're doing. We just got an incredible grant from Young Futures Academy, and we are going to have our students create videos of their favorite video games. And in the students' videos, the students will be talking to their parents, caregivers, etc., families, about what they love about those particular videos. And the project's called Play My Way. And we're really excited about it because we're going to have 10 videos where students will be playing their own video that they love, but then they're going to be actually instructing and helping parents understand, why do they play that video? What are they feeling when they play that video? I think that that's so important to have that intergenerational connect.
Yes, love that. Beth, for parents of younger children, what advice would you give them about focusing on social and life skills early on? And I know we talked earlier about the couch potato syndrome. So what do you want listeners to know on that subject?
Sometimes we have children who are special needs children who really just want to sit in their room and either play video games or just sit there and just don't want to leave the house. It's like easier to not leave the house. And my advice for that is leave the house. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and they may not want to go to the supermarket with you, but try to do it in small increments. Like today, we are spending 10 minutes in the supermarket, and after that, we're going to go get ice cream. I do believe in rewards and bribes. I like them. I'm fine with that, within limits. That type of thing. Get them out of the house. We're going to the circus. It's going to be loud. It's going to be over-sensory. Maybe you're only going to be there for a half hour, and then we'll leave.
But they're getting outside their comfort zone.
Exactly.
All right, two-part question. What's the biggest shift you'd like to see in workforce development and philanthropy for young adults with autism?
That's such a great question. So, as you said before, we know that schools are antiquated, using, a 100-year-old model, almost like a factory model of teaching. And neurotypical and neurodivergent folks are graduating high school, and the leap to find a job is gigantic. I feel like internships are very, very, very important. But in order to get an internship, you have to have skills, right? And so coming back to Tech Unlimited, that is where we are teaching you employable skills. And we are teaching you specific technology, software, all open source, all free, et cetera. We're teaching you all of that. You have to have those skills. You want to be able to look at a resume in the work world that says, I can do Google Docs, I can do Canva, I can, do Excel, I can do PowerPoint, I know Premiere, et cetera. You want that. And so I think that upskilling is very important. And if you think long term about your student, your child, and where you want them to be, coming to a program like Tech Unlimited, and there are other wonderful programs there, a bakery program that teaches you how to be a bakery, other programs like that are skill-related programs. That is the best thing that you can do, for your child, whatever thing that they're interested in. If they're interested in basketball, that is fantastic too. Join a club, have them, create, if they're interested in basketball, join that, because that's teaching them about skills. It's teaching about collaborations. It's teaching them about trying to make friends. So, that piece. In terms of philanthropy, in my humble opinion, wants to always see specific results. And at the end of the day, workforce philanthropy in particular wants to see how many jobs you have created for children, for your students. I think that that's the wrong way to look at it. I think that work means many different things to many different people. Work may mean sitting at home and having a great eBay store or a Poshmark store. People do it. People earn their living. That may be work. It may mean being a barista at Starbucks. That is work. That is okay. That is wonderful. So workforce philanthropy is very complex. I feel very lucky at Tech Unlimited that we have a set of almost like 25 funders that we work very hard to work with and writing grants and who are supporting us, who understand our kids. They understand that there's no race to the finish line. They understand that our students take many more years to develop and that they need to be upskilled repeatedly. And that also they understand that the social worker aspect is incredibly important. One of the things that I about Tech Unlimited that I really love, and that's why I encourage people to send their children to work with us, is that we are a community. We are an anti-bullying, no bullying, kind, inclusive community. Sometimes our students, for the very first time, being surrounded by students like themselves in a specialized environment from multiple different schools, whether it's online or in person, there's a real sense of relief. There's a real sense of comfort of like being surrounded by a bunch of techies that are like them. And that's what I love about Tech Unlimited, is that it's a place. It's a place for young people to go, to make friends, to learn something, to have fun, to stretch their brains in terms of their soft skills, and to really start understanding how to advocate for themselves.
Great. So before we wrap up, I know you were talking about your different programs earlier. I think we covered 3 out of 5. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about the others briefly?
Yes, I do want to say we have this one program, and it is really the cherry on the cake. And the program is called Career Ready Internship Summer Program, and this is an invite-only program. So this means, this is all the more reason to join Tech Unlimited. This means that when the student is about 17, from between 17 and 24, after they have taken multiple workshops at Tech Unlimited, if our education staff feels that they are developmentally and technologically able to have an internship, which is a 20-hour-a-week internship at a specific site, then we will give them that internship. So this summer, we had 25 of our students who worked at 18 different organizations, including Con Edison, small businesses, website design shops, etc. And it's all guided by a team of social workers who give them support and workplace etiquette, career readiness etiquette during the 6-week program. If the student is not ready to do this 6-week program, we also have a 3-week program that really any of our students that have been in our programs can join in the summer. But the key thing is, if you don't have the tech skills, we can't invite you to either of the programs. So just start getting the tech skills.
That's right. Finally, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
As parents, we're on a journey. And I said this before, it's a hard journey. And I get a little choked up when I say this, because I really believe that we can make the world a better place if we all work together. And someone once said this to me, and I really believe that this is true when you're raising a special needs child. And it goes like this: love your child so that the world thinks you're crazy, and then love them more. And that's it. And take care of yourself too, as a parent, because we're not good if we're not taking care of ourselves. And that means sleeping, eating right, exercising, and having some fun too. So come to Tech Unlimited. Your kid's going to love it. You're going to meet great people. You're going to meet parents. We have a parent group, a free online parent group every single month that you can join. And thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure to have you. That's a really nice note to end on. This has been a great conversation about all things tech. I appreciate all the insights you've shared with our listeners about how individuals with special needs, neurodiverse individuals can gain the skills and experience that they need to flourish in the working world. And I'm excited to follow Tech Unlimited's growth in the future. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Curious Incident, a podcast for special needs families. Don't forget to subscribe for a new episode every month. For more resources and helpful information, check out our website and blog at dayanlawfirm.com. This podcast provides general information which is not intended to and does not constitute legal advice. You should not rely on this information for any purpose. For legal counsel, you should consult with an attorney to discuss your specific circumstances. Your listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and the law offices of Adam Dayan, PLLC. No attorney-client relationship is established unless a retainer agreement has been executed between the client and the law offices of Adam Dayan. This podcast may constitute attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome. Any guests featured or resources mentioned on this podcast are for information purposes and are not endorsed by the law offices of Adam Dayan, PLLC.